SpaceX definitely excels at getting satellites into orbit swiftly and efficiently. They usually always put on a spectacular display for the locals and the thousands of fans watching online. The last Falcon Heavy launch was no exception. The reusable rocket lacked landing legs, and all 3 boosters were expended during the mission, a departure from their usual recovery procedure. Aside from that, the upper stage included a gray band at the top that was critical to the launch's success. But more importantly, the fairing's violent re-entry was the hottest yet for SpaceX. So what is the key distinction? How is Elon Musk pushing the Falcon Heavy harder? Before we continue, please smash the like button, share, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the channel and put the notification bell on so you don't miss our next video. All of this and more in today's episode of Amazing SpaceX Launches. Last Sunday at 8:26 p.m. ET, the Falcon Heavy launched off under dark skies. Following the side core booster separation, the rocket ascended back into the sunlight about 3 minutes into the flight, illuminating the exhaust plume into a beautiful orangish color. The center core of the Falcon Heavy continued, putting on a show high in the upper atmosphere. The enormous exhaust plume was a dazzling white color, nearly in the shape of a flower, and it was just the rocket's 6th launch ever, but its 2nd. So far in 2023, its power is only surpassed by NASA's Space Launch System, which has only flown once, and SpaceX's Starship is effectively 3 Falcon 9 rockets fitted together with 27 Merlin engines that creates 5.1 million pounds of thrust on liftoff. It detonated before reaching space during a test launch earlier in April. Unlike past Falcon Heavy launches, however, SpaceX did not return any of its 3 first-stage rockets for a vertical landing. This mission requires 3 burns by the upper stage and takes around 6 hours to reach its target orbit. The Falcon Heavy's upper stage's sole engine shut down 8 minutes after launch, putting the vehicle in an initial parking orbit. 2 further firings were scheduled over the next 3 hours and 44 minutes to place the satellite in its intended geosynchronous orbit of 22,300 miles. This is because direct insertion into geosynchronous orbit is one of the most difficult mission types in the rocket industry. A geostationary orbit, also known as a geosynchronous equatorial orbit, is a circular geosynchronous orbit 35,786 kilometers or 22,236 miles above the Earth's equator. In comparison to low Earth orbit, GEO is much more taxing and requires an extremely powerful launch vehicle when the payload weight is high. The profile necessitates increased battery life on the upper stage, as well as a bespoke band of gray thermal paints on the rocket to help ensure the kerosene fuel does not freeze during the hours spent in orbit. As a result, there was no need for SpaceX to include landing legs or even grid fins on any of the 3 boost rockets. The boosters were depleted following separation by falling into the Atlantic Ocean. 2 of the 3 boosters had previously flown, one for the 8th and another for the 3rd one. One for the 8th and another for the 3rd time. The center stage is the Rookie, with a notional payload capacity of 8 tons or 18,000 pounds to a geostationary transfer orbit. With the recovery of all 3 first-stage cores, the price per launch is $97 million. In fully expendable mode, the US versus 26, 7 tons or 59,000 pounds. This helps to put things into perspective. When the boosters are depleted, the payload and performance rise. Viasat has not disclosed how much it paid SpaceX for the launch date chosen by Intel. Last year, SpaceX charged a premium for a launch in which the booster was expended, but that isn't the case with this unique mission. You'll notice a gray band in a portion of the upper stage. Normally, Falcon's upper stages are practically indistinguishable from one another. However, in July 2019, the upper stage stowed behind the current higher stage and the front has a distinct gray band around the bottom of its airframe. Another Falcon 9 upper stage with the same gray band was tried by SpaceX, according to a spokeswoman, in order to extend the rocket's endurance in orbit. Long orbital cruises of 6 hours or more are required for some of the most difficult launches. The most prevalent sorts of missions that require long coast capability are direct geostationary launches, which are frequently requested by the US military. When the liquid, kerosene, or RP-1 fuel stored within this section of the rocket becomes too cold, the gray band increases the amount of heating absorbed from sunlight. Kerosene, which is a far greater freezing point than Falcon's liquid oxygen. If consumed, oxidizer turns sticky and slushy before freezing solid. Slushy fuel would certainly block ignition or ruin the upper stage's Merlin engine, and even the protection to fragments of a SpaceX rocket created dramatic waves when they returned to Earth following the flight. SpaceX has released incredible re-entry footage from one of the 2 fairings used in the most recent Falcon Heavy launch. The previously flown fairings were employed for the first time on a Falcon Heavy flight just after the 2nd stage separated and began its burn to put the payloads into geostationary Earth orbit. After deploying from the 2nd stage, the fairing halves floated to the apogee, or the highest point, before beginning their journey back through Earth's atmosphere. This is the most ambitious attempt at fairing recovery. But with the fairings traveling at 15 times the speed of sound, fairing re-entry on the Vias at 3 missions was the hottest and fastest we've ever attempted. On Tuesday, May 2nd, SpaceX officials tweeted, "This time the MECO and Stage 2 separation were at over 17,000 kilometers per hour. Following its perilous passage through the stratosphere, the Pharynx deploys a parachute and lands gently in the Atlantic Ocean, stationed more than 1,200 miles from Florida. Its furthest trip yet faring recovery. Doug Hurley, a crew member on the ship named after the demo, was ready and waiting to rescue the Pharynx from the ocean. We don't know if one fairing half or both were retrieved, but when the recovery ship returns to Port Canaveral, we'll get our first look at the fairings that did their best shooting star impressions as they sailed through the atmosphere. This is crunchy. Elon Musk said Sunday's flight concluded a hectic few days for SpaceX, which had launched 46 of its own low-altitude Starlink internet satellites from California's Vandenberg Space Force Base. On Thursday, the business launched 2 medium-altitude broadband satellites from the Cape Canaveral space station for Luxembourg-based SES. All 3 launches on Friday illustrate the ongoing battle to install space-based internet relay stations to deliver broadband connectivity to clients wherever in the world, including rural, hard-to-reach, underserved areas, aircraft, and ships at sea. This year, the Falcon Heavy will fly 3 more flights. The USS F-52 mission is expected to launch no earlier than June 23rd, with the EchoStar 24 or Jupiter 3 payload following in August. The NASA Psyche asteroid probe launch is slated for October 5th, followed by 5 missions in 2024, one of which being the Europa Clipper. Europa Clipper will undertake a thorough scan of Europa and deploy a sophisticated suite of research instruments to determine whether the ice moon is habitable. In short, until Starship enters active service, Falcon Heavy will remain a formidable beast. And that concludes today's episode. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you click down below and leave me a comment about which supercar you prefer to have. Thanks for watching.